well at. This is very, by the way, very biased towards Crooks' experience of slums, and also areas where I think we can improve upon. So, what I want to talk about, start off with some context about slums. What are they? The problem of slums, or the challenge is like, what is a slum? Most people say, oh, a slum is X, but really, if everyone has a different definition of what a slum is, it means it's very hard to actually monitor them or map them with that. So talk about that. Talk about what is a slum, and then also move into data, because one of the areas if we're trying to map or monitor slums, we need to know where they are. So talk about how we can use various data sources, such as crowd-generated data or remote sense imagery, to actually monitor, detect slums. And then after sort of the monitoring and detecting slums, get to the interesting bit, which is why do they form, where do they form, and why? And I'll give a very brief overview of like the current slum models out there, and then talk about what we're good at with those models and areas where we can potentially improve upon. So sort of that's what I'm going to do in the next 45 minutes or so. So slums are a global problem. There's over 1 billion people living in slums at the moment, and this is a growing problem. 1 billion people today, potentially 2 billion by 2030, potentially 3 billion by 2050. There's going to be like a lot, like 1 in 3 people in the world will be living in slums by that time. Often they're characterized by poverty, poor living conditions, but also these are very vulnerable populations. Often slums are formed in areas of inappropriate land, where people don't want to live, so flood zones and so forth. So these people tend to be at risk for many things. Also, a lot of slums don't have right of tenure; they don't own the land. There might be slum lords, people renting out slums and things like that. But these people are vulnerable to not just the climate, but also economies and things like that. They're also a large informal economy. Therefore, it's potentially a burden on the tax base. You don't earn taxes from these things, and so it can be a local problem, it can be a national problem, or a regional problem as well. So the slums are like a global phenomenon that has many issues, both locally, taxation, nationally, again, I would say tax or planning issues, things like that, and then regional, it potentially impacts economic growth and so forth. Slums have been around since the dawn of cities, and slums, by the way, when I talk about slums, I'm talking about urban slums, not rural living conditions, but slums specifically with respect to cities. And the idea is slums are constantly growing. So if you look at this large megacities, which I know Bill probably had this slide, there's always problem following Bill, because he talked about the WMD project, and I would have talked about that, but Karen put me today, I couldn't talk about that. So, but megacities are constantly growing. If you look at where most of these large megacities are going to be growing, they're in less developed countries, right? These are also homes where the vast majority of slums are located. So if you look at this map here, you've got basically the urban population, and in the red is the percentage of the part of the urban population that live in slums, right? So you can sort of see vast majority, a lot of countries in the less developed world have major slum populations. Of course, we don't have data on some areas, right? Don't think there's no slums there, as I said, we don't have data on slum population in those areas. And the idea is slums are a growing issue worldwide, but if you actually look at studies of slums, especially from a remote sensing point of view, modeling point of view, they focus on very little, like maybe 1 or 2 Asian-based models of slums in India, 1 or 2, and they have like up to 90 million people live. Well, 90 million people or so living in slums, right? But the idea is, slums are like a global problem all around the world.
Back to that one, is it your classification or somebody else's?
This is
size of the red.
This is from the UN data set. So some people would say China does not have any slums.
Exactly. If you ask the Chinese, would they say they have slums or not?
Officially.
Officially, I've been told that China does not have a slum problem, but I'm not. I'm agnostic. That's what the UN puts out.
Yeah.
So.
As he looks at the camera.
And basically, so the idea what I'm trying to show here is the same idea. Slums are growing, cities are growing, more and more people living in cities, and the proportion of people living in slums are also growing. So, and it's all over the world, and this trend will be increasing. Yeah, Dale.
So are they growing because population is growing, or are they growing for some other reason?
Good question.
Oh, that's one.
So there's a lot of reasons why people propose slums are growing. Often it's like basically the cities are growing so fast that local and national governments don't have the ability to put in enough infrastructure to house these new populations, and therefore they end up living in slum settlements. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it looks like lots of the proportions seem to be declining.
Yeah, but the population is growing. So this is proportion of the percentage, right? So while the proportion might be declining, the actual number of people is actually increasing. These are percentages, not numbers. I guess numbers would have been a better thing in that example there. So slums have been around since the dawn of civilization. They've always been studied in a lot of different areas, right? And this is to show that I'm not talking BS, so to speak. That there is a lot of work being done on slums. These tend to be one-off studies, or very few inter-slum comparison exercises, or slum studies across different areas, partly because of data issues. Some are more economic-based, such as affordability of house prices and things like that. Others tend to be like just more literature reviews, people actually living with slum communities for years and things like that. But sort of what I want to focus on really today is GIS and remote sensing, because we have more and more data, more and more sensing technologies these days. So how can we leverage that? And also how we can look at the slums from a micro level perspective, such as through agent-based modeling. Those are sort of the things I want to talk about. If you want to know more about this, there's a great literature review paper on the social and physical constructs of slums by Mahabir et al., which I really recommend. Slums, the other reason you might be interested in slums is they're growing. How do we potentially, help manage those types of slums? So, and this is also the reason for modeling. This is what got me interested in slums, because most of the policies when it comes to slums are done after the fact. Now, there's no real modeling. Like, this sounds like a good idea, let's do this. And then the consequences kick in. Traditionally, with urban growth, people thought slums were, they'll just disappear as cities become more wealthy. That also didn't happen. In the 70s, you had this thing called sites and services, which is basically you provide basic infrastructure, roads, water, right, and then let people build around those things. What ended up, again, that this didn't alleviate the problem of slums. Then people update slums, add new infrastructure to existing slums, but slums still keep growing, slums still keep emerging. What about if you give ownership to people who live in slums? Make them more responsive. If you give ownership, you have a property record. You have a property record. You pay property taxes. What happened there is people then had property rights, and then so they sold the slum, sold their houses or their shacks, and moved elsewhere. And now the idea in this here is cities. We now know that there are basically slums in cities. How do we deal with these things? And how do we change? So there are policies that have been doing, but all the ideas that go behind these policies, which is done sort of off the cuff without any real empirical evidence to support them. So what is a slum? Anyone?
An unorganized, unrecognized part of the city that has no social services or utilities, municipal services.
Okay. that's one definition. Anyone else?
Communities with high dense populations.
High dense populations, but that could be any urban city, like anywhere, right? No?
Yeah.
I would add living below a poverty level or close to poverty level.
Okay.
Unplanned.
Pardon?
Unplanned.
Unplanned.
Living below, health standards.
Okay, so these are very all subjective measures, right? And a lot of times it's good. So the problem is all your definitions are slightly different. So can we so the challenge is, you know, some people might think a slum is a slum, while other people think, well, it's actually not that bad. You know, it's like where I grew up, some people would call that a hole. Other people say it's really pleasant, right? And the idea is definitions are important because if we're trying to monitor slums, we need to define what they are, right? So lots of different countries or cities have their own definition of what a slum is. Some have no definitions. Others say it's based on some type of construction material. Others will say temporary structures, non-permanent. Some say they lack basic services, like you were saying. Others will say they're dense, compact, as Richard mentioned. But there's a whole variety of different ones. This is at the settlement level, right? But then the United Nations, on the other hand, will say, well, slums are also at the individual household level, right? So there's sort of disconnect between settlements and individuals. And, you know, the widely accepted view of a slum is actually at the household level, not at the population level, Phil.
When you say at the household level, does that mean my neighbor can be a slum and I may not be?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting UN definition.
Yeah. But it also lacks one or more of these. It was interesting is the water issue is really not a problem in many places anymore. India, for example, the lack of access to water, or safe water, is not a problem when it comes to slums. Nearly all slums have access to safe water now. But, you know, there's also the idea is no more than 3 people to share in the same room. Think of like dorms or students and things like that. But the idea is there are definitions out there about what is a slum, and if we're trying to monitor these things, we need to be able to use some type of definition, a formal definition of what it is, to benchmark ourselves against it. So, you know, a lot of people say, you know, they'll see a slum where it is. These are just to give you ideas. A lot of people, so a lot of recent work we've been doing is remote sensing, right? And remote sensing of slums is easy, right? But it's not, because the spectral characteristics of slums are very different. This is just some of the slums in Ahmedabad. If you go to my office, you'll see this picture. Look at the roof structures. You're doing hyperspectral imagery here. Each one of these will be different signals back, right? High resolution. And you sort of see different things, different structures on different roofs, like plastic, tin, and so forth. You know, very small structures. People live in them. Crowding. This gives you a sort of a sense of what slums look like. I didn't really get a sense of this until I was working with Nick Patel, who actually took these photos of the slums in Ahmedabad in India. But here again, different roof structure. From a remote sensing point of view, that makes it tricky to monitor. But the first part of this talk is all about data. How can we use data for looking at slums? Ideally, in the developed world, we have access to census data, but some slums are growing rapidly. Some slums growing around 300 people a day in the Philippines and things like that. So the census that you take 10 years ago will be within a year will be rapidly out of date. Censuses are costly. They cost a lot of money to operate, and they time consuming. Also, when it comes to identifying slums, take India for example, it's up to the census, the person, the surveyor who's doing the census, to define is that a slum or not a slum. So people who are from different regions in India have different definitions of what a slum is. Therefore, they don't get a very full picture of what a slum is. Again, and also, if you look at census data, it's aggregated for privacy reasons, right? To census plot groups in the US and so forth. So, and then other countries like or areas like Palestine haven't had a census for years. Pakistan hasn't had one since 1990, right? So if you're trying to just base slums on socioeconomic indicators that you might get from the census, you can't really do that. So what other types of data is available to look at slums? So this goes back to like the challenge of data, and which is, you know, one is how do we define a slum? So it's a scale issue. Are we defining a slum at a household level, or a settlement or of a neighborhood, or a larger area? And there's different types of slums as well, different typologies of slums. So unplanned, someone said. I can't remember who said unplanned. Other slums, though, there's a notion called shals in Ahmedabad, which are old factory housing that now are characterized as slums. But initially they weren't. So these are well-built buildings, but they're now classed as slums. You have abandoned skyscrapers in South America that are now classed as slums, and things like that. So there's a lot of variety. So defining what a slum is really quite important. Different data sources have different limitations. Census data every 10 years, if you're lucky, in the US, in less developed countries, all bets are off. Remote sensing, resolution, so modus or whatnot. You have like 30 meter resolution, right? Therefore, you want to check very small slums. Very high resolution satellite imagery, less than 5 meter resolution, extremely costly. Repeat rate, how often does the satellite fly over to build a time series type of data set, and things like that. Often also, most people will just look at one thing, remote sensing or socioeconomic. What we're trying to do here is we merge, later on I'll show you how we're trying to merge these different things together. And often social food aggregation issues, socioeconomic census type thing, are not cannot be compared to remote sensing because of maybe the time it was taken. You know, when was the census last done compared to when the last time satellite flew over the area. So you have spatial and temporal mismatches in these data sets. And you know, without sort of exploring these things, it can be very challenging to really tackle slums, is what I'm trying to get at here. So what we've been working on the last few years is this type of notion. Is to be able to textualize slums and conceptualize slums, and how we can use data to help better inform this, and also modeling. So in the remaining of this talk, it's really what I want to get at is, you know, linking both data and modeling to better get the idea on slums, how slums are growing, and the impact of slums. And you know, later on, what are the I'll show you an example where we take socioeconomic data, remote sensing data, running through some data mining tools to come up with candidate indicators for slums. Why do you want that? So then, if you have candidate indicators, you can then say these are sort of the types of data you might want to start collecting on a global scale to really actually get this using open data standards. So the idea is trying to link these areas together. And I'll start off with volunteer geographic information. So this is Kibera slum in Kenya. This is how Google Maps portrays it. While OpenStreetMap, volunteer geographic information, the mission of OpenStreetMap is to create an open source map of the world. Anyone can edit and things like that. So here, people have actually gone around and edited where the toilets are in the slums, where the footpaths are, where you can get where the churches and the places of worship are, where you can get water, where you can go get a drink. People are mapping what they feel important. The question is, why do people do this? We'll come back to that later on as well. What drives participation? Why do people start mapping the world around them? There's the notion of the armchair geographer also in this talk as well. So that sort of gives you an idea. But we have lots and lots of data sources now. So one of the areas that is very active in the open volunteer geographical community is how good is volunteer geographical information compared to authoritative data sources. When I mean authoritative data sources, I mean data sources coming from government, such as census data or census this tiger data with respect to the US road network. In reality, but because that's openly available, all that's been added to OpenStreetMap and updated. So in this first example, we want to compare Kenya's now, and we're using Kenya as also a case study in this talk, because Kenya has an open data initiative. It's one of the few in Africa that has a lot of data with respect to roads and slums. So that's quite good for this study. And like most, and I should also say, in with modeling, most models, like Asian-based models, growth models, things like that, all are focused on the developed world. Well, the vast majority are focused on the developed world. Very few people look at less developed countries. The same with respect to the quality of open data. I mean, data that you can access without having to pay, not necessarily, not copyright. No. Same here. This is one of the first studies that looked at open data in less developed countries. So what we're trying to do here is compare OpenStreetMap data, OSM, to Google MapMaker data, because in the old days you could make maps in Google. The difference between making maps in Google and OpenStreetMap is the copyright issue. Making a map in Google owns it, or making a map in OpenStreetMap, the community owns it. And then we're comparing that against another data set called RCMRD, and that acronym now escapes me, but it's some regional
Center.
Oh, it is over there, yeah, thank you. Regional Centre for Mapping and Resources for Development. Thank you. And the question we had here is, how good is the crowd at mapping the roads in this area compared to the government, right? So this is our study area, and we also have data. You can sort of see, we took OpenStreetMap. Like OpenStreetMap's nice because every time you edit a feature in OpenStreetMap, a road, a point, or whatever, it has a change date. So we can actually look at the world in 2011 and the world in 2018 if we want to, or whatever, as long as you just mine the change log. So we could get the same data set for OSM to the authoritative data set. We couldn't do the same for Google, so there's a date mismatch there. But we can compare Google MapMaker to OSM because we can make a road network from OSM data from 2014. Does that make sense? So we're trying to understand the coverage. Otherwise, you have a temporal resolution of a temporal mismatch of 3 years. 3 years, you could build new roads. You could do things, so you couldn't really compare them. We also want to. There's also another debate is areas that are more densely populated more covered by the crowd, by people, than more rural areas. So for that part of the analysis, we use landscan data that gives us ambient population of an area, so we can work out population density. From population density, work out coverage rates and things like that. So in this simple study, we can give you a mismatch of different data sets here. What you have is green is the authoritative data sets. OSM is mainly this here in OpenStreetMap. Roads are either classed as residential or unclassified. The vast majority of roads in OpenStreetMap tend to be one of these two, but it's up to the crowd what we classify them as. So you're defined by the crowd. And in Google MapMaker, we just classify as local roads. So you can sort of see, there's different amounts of coverage, or different amounts of road networks in this image, right? So that what we're trying to do here is to assess which of the three products, the authoritative or the two crowdsourced ones, which one gives us better coverage within this area. And so you can download data. So the first is look at road coverage per 1 kilometre cell. Why we use 1 kilometre is because later on we look at population density. The population density is at 1 kilometre resolution. So you can sort of see with MapMaker, you sort of get more dense. You have more road coverage in central Nairobi. Same OSM in both years, and RCM sort of you can see less density of roads, just like that. So it suggests that just from this picture, you the crowd is mapping the roads at a finer scale than what the government's providing. And in this one, we're looking at the differences between different things per set of grid cell. So what you're sort of seeing here is the authoritative data set versus MapMaker. The authoritative data set against OpenStreetMap 2011. OpenStreetMap versus MapMaker. Authoritative versus OSM 2014. What you basically are seeing here is sort of a difference map. Red, the first layer, has more coverage. So in this example, when it's red, it means that OSM has more coverage in that area than MapMaker. Green, it's the opposite way around. It's the second one. MapMaker is better than OSM. What we're sort of seeing again here is OpenStreetMap is much better at capturing urban areas than rural areas. OpenStreetMap and Google MapMaker provide much better and denser coverage of slums in Nairobi than the authoritative data sets do. Google MapMaker is slightly better than OpenStreetMap in this example for more rural areas. One second. And then the RCM is much better in rural areas than the other products.
So when you say higher coverage, do you assume that it's accurate coverage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, when you say accurate,
Well, because earlier in the talk what you said was there's a question as to how good the resolution is for crowdsourced data.
yeah.
So the question is this, these layers of higher coverage, does it assume that, for example,
No one's lying.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
it's just correct?
No. So we had looked at, like, if you read in the paper, we show examples of where you might have misclassifications, but in general, you can crowdsourced data has very little graffiti or digital graffiti, and they tend to be much more accurate or more correct or accurate than the official data sources. It's a very strange thing, but it's coverage. In this example, it's like if you want to know what's happening roads out in the outskirts of an area, use the official data source in less developed countries. While in more densely populated areas, especially in the slums in Nairobi, the crowdsourced data is doing really well, which is sort of what I just said there, really. So we have data, but one of the things that we were getting at, which one paper again led by Ron was a former PhD student in GGS, now a postdoc, is what causes people to go online and be digitally active. There's a debate, like how many people here actually has ever edited a Wikipedia page? 1, 2, 3. Anyone edited OpenStreetMap? No?
Provided feedback for Google Maps.
Provided feedback? Why did you edit a Wikipedia page?
I found something that was wrong.
Okay. Dale?
A citation was needed and I found it.
Okay. So there's this notion of what causes people to edit. So one is there is a mistake. But how did you realize? How were you on that page? How did you realize? What drove you to go to that page? It's very. You see what I'm getting at? Like there's something that causes you to be aware. So the debate is why do people contribute to these online communities? So we want to explore that here specifically with digital content and geographical content. So again, we're using OpenStreetMap here as our example, but this time instead of looking at slums, I'm diverging a wee bit here. I'm looking at refugee camps, which could be classed as slums. So we took 8 refugee camps from around the world, randomly selected. So we took D is Calais, the jungle. You might have seen it in the news. It's now no longer. It might have got destroyed by the French government and things like that. We have Dadaab in Kenya, one of my favourites, and then some others get spread around the world. We know some information about how big these camps are. We know like when they were formed. G, by the way, this one's amazing because years ago it didn't exist, but due to the Syrian crisis, it's now quite large, well-planned plans. And Yida in South Sudan, of course, has keeps coming and going. So the question is, why do people map these? You know, I'm still trying to wonder this out. So trying to understand this digital activism, what causes someone to become digitally active and actually go out and map these types of things? Is digital activism driven by news coverage, which is you might wait till you see the result, Doug. Is it, you know, is people searching online? So here we're using news. We use Google News because we can easily mine that data. We use search trends from Google because the idea of a search trend shows interest in the topic. Doesn't necessarily mean it's in the news, but people have an interest. And then we also look at the contribution patterns in OpenStreetMap. So the question is, does news cause people to edit? So if you hear about Calais or Oknar in Turkey, you hear in the news, you're like, where is that place? Does that mean you go online, edit the Wikipedia page? Or does that mean you go online and edit the map? Right? And so we're trying to understand the relationship between news, search trends, and edit patterns both in OpenStreetMap, and then a less geographical source, Wikipedia. And again, you can mine, both of these have change logs, so we can mine the changes in these types of things. We're trying to understand what understands digital activism. Doug?
One of the things that might impel a person to edit a map is that there are reports of violence in an area, and especially if it's an area that's not that well mapped, you really don't know what's where. You start looking and you realize, okay, there's a pattern. I didn't realize there was a road here, but there was a sequence of truck bombs along this one sort of linear pattern. That must be a road. But not truck bombs, but under road bombs of trucks. You start realizing, all right, there must be a road there.
Yeah.
Do you, I don't know if you looked at whether we could even look to see how many of these contributors are local or external, because I would imagine...
You can't get that information from edits in OSM.
Okay.
Users, because you can also, the problem with OpenStreetMap is that you can all edit OpenStreetMap with the same username and password at the same time. The mapper fonts. In Wikipedia, you know the user who's edited it, but you don't have the IP address. So you can't do a location. So actually knowing where these people are editing from is one of the large challenges. So there are studies looking at the social, are people mapping nice areas, rich areas, or poor areas? Does that relate to the demographics of OpenStreetMap users? There's some great papers by Mullen and Steve Jackson on this. But we don't know who, without actually having access to those servers, you've no idea who's editing this session, and it's not that data is not available to us.
Could it be also the rapid proliferation of smartphones? So like in India, when I go, even people who are poor, they have smartphones. They live in slums, and now they have the ability to go online
and map them.
And the government doesn't go in at all, so there's no existing map as such, because streets are kind of temporary. Sometimes they move because
So the crowd definitely has that, and there are actually when I travel now, I use maps.me, which downloads OpenStreetMap to my phone. If I wanted to then edit the OpenStreetMap because I find an error, I can do that. Then when I have an internet connection, I can add it back to OpenStreetMap, and you do see edits into the refugee camps by people editing offline, then uploading later on. There's a tag in the thing. There's also, you raised a very interesting thing. Some area would be several organizations such as Apple and FatNav companies are using now not the VGI, not this OpenStreetMap stuff, but Mapillary, which is Mapillary is basically the crowdsourced version of Google Street View, and using this open source version of Google Street View to actually create points of interest databases, such as coffee shops, roads, things like that. Because a photo is very hard to lie with. You have a sign saying Starbucks coffee shop, and it looks like a Starbucks coffee shop, and machine learning tells you that's a Starbucks coffee shop. there's a Starbucks coffee shop there, and you have an XY location. So there's a whole new area opening there as well. So anyway, refugee camps, why do people map them? So, bottom line, so we're interested in what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do people map the camps? Do people talk, is it the news driving the conversation, or is it people searching within this? We look at monthly, weekly and daily edits and news things, so you can look at the resolution. If you squint, you can really see more about that page. But the idea is, we really care about is, you know, when are things being edited, what's driving the conversation, right? If that makes sense. So this is the edit pattern of these refugee camps over time from 2010 to 2017. Why do we choose this date range? We could go back and Google Trends that far. So we wanted to stop our, we had to stop our thing. You can sort of see that Dadaab is one of the oldest refugee camps. Most of the edits were happening in middle of 2012. That's when the State Department had their first open source mapping initiatives going on. But then you had other editing patterns during these two events, right? While the more recent camps like Yida only were really mapped from the last towards the end of 2016. So you see these peaks of activity, right? The question is what causes these peaks of activity within these different camps? So we can look at the camps. So we have each Dadaab, Nagasaki, Yida, Okula in Turkey, Sakkari, Bidi Bidi, Kalin, and so forth. On top of each one of these, we have black line. That's the OpenStreetMap pattern. Then we have the red line, which is Wikipedia edits. People editing the Wikipedia article related to that refugee camp. We have green is Google News, so the trends in Google News during that time. And then this blue line is Google Trends, people searching for that camp, or that over time. What do you say? What does that say to you? No, it's noisy, right? So are people seeing it in the news and going to edit it, or are people searching for it, or whatnot? There's definitely bursts of activity here. And this is, by the way, these here are only around the 4 month when it comes to the largest peak of activity in OpenStreetMap. So we restricted, so we find out when the most activity was happening, and the question was, what's causing that most activity? So we just look at the 4 months prior to that and the 4 months after that trend. Because Google, and the bottom line for that one is Google, to create an index in Google's trends, you can only go 4 months one side, on a daily scale, one way or another. So 4 months was our window that we look at here. So what causes this public awareness, which is, it's a wordy slide, but I think I was trying to get look at this. So what causes this, you know, and the idea is Google News represents the it's the news, trends is public's interest. News and interest don't sort of go hand in hand. Right? So the idea is if there's a surplus of awareness or deficit, does this cause digital activism to occur or not? So awareness surplus means that you see it a lot in Google Trends, and you also see a surplus in Google News. Or a deficit would be where news coverage outpaces people's interest in it. So people are not interested, do people edit, or when there's high awareness, people edit? This is sort of what we're trying to get at here. We have equations. You know I love those types of stuff. Right? So what you're having here are basically two lines, right? The black line is OpenStreetMap. This other line is Wikipedia edits. These are not. And then this magenta line is awareness. So both means it's positive awareness, below is negative awareness. So in theory, if people are aware of something, you would think that they would be more interested in edit it. In other times, so anything above, like this camp next you have a surplus, so it's a both, and lots of editing is happening around that time, right? While in other times, you have a negative public awareness, but a lot of editing patterns are going on online. So the question is, what's causing these edits to occur? And this theory, I know sometimes people complain I don't talk about theory enough, but like, in communication theory, there are two things. There's agenda setting theory and corrective action theory, which sort of explains why you have this weird pattern of sometimes you have attention surplus, attention deficit, that leads to these edit patterns occurring. So when you have a surplus, it leads to agenda setting theory, people hearing about it, and therefore editing, such as in some of the camps. While if there's a deficit in awareness, people will start editing the maps. Why? And if you it still doesn't add to the whole idea of why people are editing the maps, but it sort of gives an idea that there's not one reason why people edit. It's sort of the bottom line. And but the question is, how can you? If you want to foster just more people mapping, you want to get more and more data on slums and things like that, right? We need to foster those, work out what's happening here, make more people digitally active. What can you make? How can you make people more digitally active? You need to sort of understand the what stimulates someone, what causes critical awareness, and is it because there's a lack of awareness or too much awareness that causes people to activate? And how can you spawn that, say, with crowdfunding campaigns and things like that? So still don't really understand why people are doing this, but it's sort of, people are editing either, but it's not always related to events happening, which I thought was quite strange. But the other side of this is we have the crowd getting data, but we have more and more satellite imagery as well, especially very high resolution. And high resolution satellite imagery is important if you're looking at slums at the individual level, not the slum settlement level, but like individual slum dwellings, because high resolution imagery is anything 5 meters or below.
So what is the high
Very.
resolution? Yeah. It's less than 5 meters.
Yeah, so it's like 50 centimeters.
50 centimeters?
Yeah. So that's expensive. So if you did a literature review, so this was 2000 up to 2016. These are all papers that have done studies of slums. You sort of see relatively global coverage, right? But look at the actual number of studies.
Yeah.
They're very small numbers, right? And then if you actually look at where these studies were occurring, remember that map right from the beginning. It's like slums are a global problem. They're actually in very small areas, looking at one slum at a time. There's very few studies that compare multiple slums or multiple settlements. Or actually, there's very few studies that compare multiple slums in the same city or multiple slums in different cities. Sure.
Who would fund these kinds of studies? Like, is there someone that benefits from understanding slums, other than the slummers themselves, other than the people who live in the slums?
I'm trying to think of politically.
I mean, no country wants a picture of their slums on the internet, right? But is there any actual economic benefit to not having slums?
Is there any economic benefit for having slums, apart from just like everyone have a better quality of life?
Yeah.
And therefore, if you also don't have slums, you have better taxation rates potentially. So you can therefore generate income to pay for services, schooling, healthcare, things like that.
But you still have to invest in the infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So at some point it's a trade-off.
Yeah, well, that's true. But like, why should we care? Is a good question.
Well, I'm not saying I care. I'm saying why should everyone else care, I guess.
Yeah. Well, some people see them as a burden on society. So, are slums, the other question is, are slums good or bad? That's another question I don't want to get into, because, slums provide a whole wealth of economies. So, like some of the slums in India are so big now their GDP is actually quite large, and you don't want to take that away from it. Slum dwellers provide services that normal city people don't want to do, cleaning your garbage, things like that. And so getting rid of them might not be the best. People might not want to get rid of them either.
Go ahead first. Go ahead, Doug.
Show me a slum and I'll show you a nice source of inexpensive labor.
Yeah, I was going to second that because in Delhi, for example, where I come from, there are slums right next to some of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city.
Yeah.
And the slums provide the daily domestic labor for cleaning the houses, the streets, doing the gardening.
And it's all paid in cash.
And it's all in cash, and it's a symbiotic relationship because without one, the other wouldn't exist or would have a very difficult time, right? The rich people would have to cook their own meals, clean their own houses, and clean their own streets.
We had the same issue many years ago with respect to migration to the UK, but let's not even go down this route.
Yeah. But it's just it's an internal migration. It's an internal immigration, kind of like we have, from Mexico and Central America to here. It's just the same. Looks to be the same phenomenon.
Well,
it's an internal one versus an external one because it.
We have to remember where does slum dwellers come from.
So they come from villages, obviously, but.
Yes and no. You have
I'm talking about Delhi. I'm talking about Delhi. Let me speak to that because people are starved. When I talk to some of the slum dwellers who work in the neighborhoods, when I go back there, their reasoning is they're starving in the villages. There's no work, so they come to Delhi, and they have work. Right? They can save some money. They live in poor conditions, but they save some money, send some back. And it becomes a network. It's just like chain immigration or chain migration. One person leaves their village, comes to the city, and then the cousin, the brother comes, and the family comes, and so on. So it becomes it's like an internal immigration essentially.
Everyone wants to go there for a little bit and then stays a lot longer than they expect to and things like that as well.
Yeah, right.
No, it's a complicated, complex issue this. And very few studies with respect to remote sensing. We can start fusing new data sources together, right? So I started off, most studies that look at remote sensing only look at remote sensing imagery. They don't bother with socioeconomic data sets, right? So this is the last one on slums. The question is, if we look at, this study we wanted to look at, again, slums in Kisumu, Nairobi, and Mombasa. 3 different cities, 3 very different economic environments, right? We have the ground truth of where the slums are, because again, the slums in these areas have been mapped, right? So that's quite neat. And the question is, can we fuse socioeconomic data sets? I'm running out of time, so I'm going to basically skip this. But basically, can we fuse socioeconomic data sets with remote sense imagery to detect slums in a city? Can we use the same detection algorithms applied to that city to apply to different cities? And do the indicators for one city match another city? The answer is, it depends. And it also depends on what data mining technique you use. So you can throw in as many candidate indicators with respect to detecting slums as you want to, which is what these squint charts are showing you, right? Basically, remote science imagery, crowdsourced data, social media data, socioeconomic data, anything that we have available that's open. We run it through 3 well-known data mining techniques: logistic regression, discriminant analysis, C5 decision trees, right? And of course, the C5 decision tree works. And so what we have here is these are the known slums. The greens are where the model's predicting the slums, right? So you can sort of see visually, right, that the C5 is better predicting slums in these 3 cities than the other ones. Yeah?
Is it C5 SEE or is it the letter C? It's a classification system.
So according to the thing, it's that one.
Okay.
C5. Trust me, we had that debate as well. But at first it was C. And then the things. And go on.
Did you look at which model was better at predicting where new slums would?
No, we're not looking at new slums here. We're looking at existing slums.
Right. And I'm saying, did you check, maybe build a model on the 2000 data and then use that model to predict where the slums in 2014?
No, we didn't. You know why?
Why?
We don't have the 2000 data. But the methodology and the index scheme that we came up with could be applied. We did this in 2010 data.
Yeah.
You could do that to 2015 data if you had it. So if you wanted a side project, we can give you the code. It's all in Python,
Okay.
and you can try to scrounge the data for a new data set and
Yeah.
see if it works.
Alright.
But we don't have the backwards data. Data is a problem,
Okay.
and the same with like remote sensing imagery. The coarse resolution we have now, fine scale, we just don't have.
Yeah.
So we can classify slums. Basically, the C5 always does better. If we also look at the decision trees, which you can't really see, the idea is we get some indicators of what's important in each city, right? We can then use the same trees and apply them to different cities, and the C5 tree does work better. This paper is published, so if anyone really wants to know more, they can get into this. But I want to get into the more interesting bit, is data. Like, we need data. I like to have models built with data, but it goes to the modeling. You know, how can we use data? How can we use models to look at slums? And I was quite depressed when I made the next slide, which is all the studies I know of slums.
That's it?
That's it. So you might, this one here, not that great. And that's by Amit Patel. This is like one of the few geographically explicit ABMs for slum. These are more conceptual models, theoretical models. They have organized crime. I love this one. This one is it was public. They have unusual artifacts, the paper says unusual behavior, because you have people living in the water, right? But if you look, you see here, guess what they did? Guess what they forgot to turn off in their model, the wrapping, the default in their logo.
So we weren't talking houseboats.
I asked them that in the review. Of course people don't live in houseboats. But the best work from the seller economic models, we have grading models and things like that. But there's very few computational models of slums out there. And I'm still like, why is that the case? Is it because no one cares? Or is it because it's a less developed world problem? You know, can we do better? There are some, Roy and Mike Lee from Amsterdam, they can see like what are the must-haves from models. So people are actually taking an interest in this, but this is a very small group of people looking at what are the main benefits, what are the main issues in these types of models. I want to finish by 4, so but what we're good at in these models is using data to build artificial worlds. That's the easy bit. What we're not good at is necessarily the people inside of these models. We probably have to delve more into the anthropology, sociology, literatures with respect to slums.
Yeah, and then they tell you that we don't like to say there's slums at all.
Well, it's in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then what are we not good at? If you go back to that previous slide, very few of those models you can read about them, but very few are actually downloadable, played around with people, not very good sharing models. We're very bad at sharing data with models as well. And also, people are tend to be only looking at the growth of slums. They tend to be ignoring other things that go on inside of slums, such as movement patterns, disease dynamics. Bianca Perez did her riot model within slums. Slums have so many other issues in them. It's not just about the growth, but most people only care about the growth of slums. No one's looking at the other internal dynamics inside of these. And then the idea is, slums are not in isolation, therefore you shouldn't just necessarily just look at the slum itself. There's lots of models out there. If you want to, there's a few models. We did a Haiti model of Haiti. We did a model of the Dadaab refugee. So there are models looking at sort of slum type of settlements and things like that. But some of the reason I think it's holding us back as modelers is access to data. I'm not very comfortable with data mining, but to really get an understanding of this, I think we need to delve into this a bit more. sample data sets are not really non-existent in these areas, and that's why I think this fusion of open source data is quite important. I think there's a disconnect between the theoretical models and the empirical models, and there's also a lot of one-off models. And there's this notion, I don't know, it's called YAWN, yet another agent-based model in the geographical sciences. That's what people are saying. So why can't we start building better this? Also, if we at the beginning of the talk I said there's a lot of disconnect between definitions of what a slum is. We can't agree on a common definition of slum. How can we build models of slums? Well, everyone's slums is different. Tom, you're doing slums at some point, right? You're doing a very small little neighborhood of slums. Also, developing models is challenging. The other idea is to go from theoretical models to more empirical models, or vice versa. What would that take? I'm more than happy to talk more about this. Lots of one-off models. I was wondering, could we? The group from the Netherlands who've been developing sort of tundra models that have sort of been extending the sleuth model by Keith Clark, right? So Keith Clark's urban growth model is being applied to like X number of cities around the world. Could we develop a slum model that could be applied to multiple cities around the world? And that goes back to this notion of the indicators that we've been looking at in Kenya. Can we define a set of indicators that we can collect to map and monitor slums? Can we use those types of indicators for a slum model? Something that we're still playing around with. But there's lots of reasons why slums grow. And this is from Dubac and Richard Sluaris from Johannes Flack, who did one of the first agent-based models of slums. And they're from 20 ITC in the Netherlands. But there's a lot of reasons why slums grow and change and things like that. But I don't think just modelling is one thing. I think we need to get all these different things together. So slums are always going to be around us. It's not just the physical aspect that you get from remote sensing, but it's also the social and economic that we can only get from other data sources. But it's the data, model, monitor, analysing. That's really how we will be able to track the growth and potentially manage slums in the future. Last slide, I promise. Slums will continue for decades to come. We need to deal with the problem. And I think we require better data collection, fusion, analysis, and modelling all together. And they should sort of feed into each other. And I would like to see more of this as well, reusing and sharing these models. But that's up to the community. So, thank you. And by the way, this is not all me, by the way. There's a whole bunch of people I've been working with on this. And thank you. In the next section, the application I'm looking at. In the sense that from the remote sensing point of view, it's always going to be a supplement.